One of the areas that I like to kind of share with subscribers to my channel, one of the things that I like to do is to kind of motivate myself through themes. And I use themes all throughout my precious metal stack and even my coin collection. But because the Thanksgiving holiday is upon us, it made me kind of stop and think a little bit. And you can't help but think about some of the things that you're thankful for. And I'm thankful that the younger me decided to start stacking precious metals decades ago. And I'm really thankful that I took the plunge and decided to create this channel. And I'm especially thankful for all of my viewers and subscribers who have come to the channel in the last 2 years. It's really kind of enriched my entire experience, and I hope that I've also kind of helped enrich your experience, whether you're a stacker, a collector, however you see yourself. If you are new to the channel, my name is Dub C. I want to thank you for being here. If you are new to the channel, now's a great opportunity. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and you too can become part of this community. If you are one of my returning subscribers, thank you, and I mean it sincerely, especially because of Thanksgiving. Thank you guys for allowing me to be a part of your journey. It has been so gratifying, and it really means a lot to me. I hope that you found the work that I do here entertaining and enlightening. So I thought we'd just do kind of a quick video about themes, about the Thanksgiving and the possibility of tying in things like Thanksgiving to your precious metal stacking. Maybe it's something that can help motivate you. It's something to kind of keep your eye on if there's a special event or a special holiday that you are very fond of. I guarantee you there are pieces that you can add to your stack that will help enrich and kind of expand that experience for you. So I'm just going to show a couple of the pieces that I have in my stack that remind me of Thanksgiving or are somehow tied to Thanksgiving. What was Thanksgiving? If you are new to the channel, I like to begin my videos with a simple disclaimer. I am not a financial advisor. I'm not trying to offer any kind of financial advice. I'm simply trying to share some of my experience having bought and sold precious metals for the last 30 or 40 years. I also like to begin my videos where I can with a couple of definitions. So let's just talk a little bit about Thanksgiving. What is Thanksgiving? It's easy for us in America sometimes who are not up on history, and I'm not talking to you 12 or 14-year-old kids out there who I'm sure have studied this at length recently. But for the rest of us, the Thanksgiving, we kind of compare and contrast the Pilgrims and the Puritans. They weren't really the same thing. In fact, in some ways, they were at odds with each other. The Pilgrims were a group of religious folks who felt persecuted in England. So they went to what is kind of Holland in that area and decided that they really wanted to expand out and go to the New World. This happened in the early 1600s. So they boarded the Mayflower, and they went to the English colonies, and they first landed, well, we actually think they may have landed a few other places, but the most popular kind of myth of where they landed became kind of the reality, is what we now call Plymouth. It's the Plymouth colonies. And that's kind of where they set up. And they were actually relatively successful. This was an incredibly difficult proposition. Very few people who made the early journey to the English colonies survived. This was a journey that is fraught with peril. And the fact that they were actually able to make a go out of it is really kind of impressive. So they landed in 1620, but during the autumn of 1621, they realized that their crops had kind of come in the way that they wanted to. Their Indian corn had come in the way they wanted to. Their barley had come in. There are some references to other crops that didn't quite make it. And I think, at least according to my understanding of how this happened, they really didn't have that many animals. They didn't really bring a lot of livestock with them. So this was really kind of, they were going to forage off the land and also grow crops. And they were relatively successful. This first year, they actually did pretty well. So they decided that they were going to have a big celebration, and they invited local Indians. Now, the Indians were a tribe called Wampanoag, and I'm sure I butchered that. So you folks who are around Plymouth can correct me. But the Wampanoags actually brought some of their stores with them. And according to the historical accounts that we have, about 90 of the Wampanoag Indians joined with about 52 of the English settlers, and they had a big kind of harvest feast. That's really what Thanksgiving is. It's saying thanks for the big harvest that you've been able to have. something that we continued and propagated in this country. And it was actually Abraham Lincoln who kind of galvanized the country and set up the first Thanksgiving. So this is a tradition that goes back at least a couple hundred years. In reality, probably 150 years. It's still something that's worth, I think, celebrating. So a few things that we can kind of show a tie-in with Thanksgiving. While you are digesting your huge turkey dinner, while you are digesting your stuffing and everything else that you've been eating, just let's take a look at some interesting pieces of silver. We've got 2 silver art bars. You folks who are a little bit older might recognize silver art bars. You younger stackers, these were incredibly popular silver vehicle in the early 1970s. Remember, this is coming on the heels of 90% silver being removed from the United States circulating coinage in 1964. So by 1965, we were down to 40% silver in our silver halves, and that was it. That was really the only way you can get your hands on silver, but so many people wanted silver that private mints all over the country started popping up and producing these 1 troy ounce silver bars that we now call silver art bars. And they covered every topic you can imagine, everything topical, anything from the headlines, any kind of thing that was happening anywhere in society was the kind of fodder that you would see on a silver art bar. But holidays were especially popular. So we find silver art bars for 4th of July and for Christmas and for New Year's and for birthdays. And they often have a date on them. These really started about 1970, took off about 1972, 73. And by the bicentennial, when everything was being made in metallic form out of sterling silver or pure silver, these kind of went by the wayside. You know, we produced a huge number of bicentennial commemorative sets, the dimes, the quarters, the half dollars, the silver dollars. Everything you can imagine was bicentennial, and that was kind of the death knell of the popularity of silver art bars. And in the interim, these pieces have been melted en masse. They have really, really seen their numbers decimated to the point that a lot of these pieces are quite scarce. And when I was growing up, they were kind of seen as not very popular. And now I think they've really kind of made a comeback. So what we're looking at here is the 1973 artistic silver. You can see it there on the back. This is a 1 troy ounce silver bar. And all of this information is usually included on these bars. You can see right here, it says 1 troy ounce. And then 999 fine silver. And there's the date down there, 1973. But I picked this one several years ago, primarily because I liked the symbolism of it so much, and I like the artistry of this. Some silver art bars are kind of corny, a little bit cheesy, and we'll take a look at one of those in just a second too. I think this one is really fantastic. The engraving on this piece is just phenomenal, and it's in amazing condition too. So this is one of my favorite silver art bars. I have to admit that my collection of silver art bars is not nearly as interesting as a lot of folks on YouTube. Really a fascinating area to collect. So that is the 1973 artistic silver first Thanksgiving silver bar. This one is a very, very popular, easy to find one. This is by the Madison Mint, 1972, and you can see the turkey there and the cornucopia and the Thanksgiving 1972. It's funny how topical these were, right? After Thanksgiving 1972, you would never buy this again. So this was really something that would have been hot for several weeks or maybe a couple of months, and that was it. To think that these pieces are 50-something years old now is really kind of interesting. And right here down at the bottom, this is 99 fine silver 1 ounce. You can see that's a little bit more difficult to make out. A lot of these bars do have edge marks. A lot of them do have serial numbers on them. So if these are something you want to pursue, look for quality, look for condition, look for those edge marks, look for scarcity. This one is incredibly popular and very easy to find. The one from Artistic Silver, not quite so much. You can find them, they are out there, but I think this one by Madison Mint, they must have made a zillion of them because you can still find lots of those. All right, next up, we're looking at these great big silver medals here. And you can see 1620 to 1960, the landing of the Pilgrims at Plymouth. So what is this medal? This was originally made. It's the Mayflower Tercentenary Medal that was originally commissioned by the Massachusetts Society of Mayflower Descendants in 1920 to commemorate the 300th anniversary of the Mayflower landing. It was originally struck in bronze and gilded bronze. Gilded just means gold-plated or gold-colored bronze. and it was struck by Reed and Barton, who, if you are a stacker of sterling silver, if you're familiar with silverware and other objects made of sterling silver, Reed and Barton, an incredibly popular company that produced tons and tons of this stuff in the 20th century. But interestingly, the president of Reed and Barton at the time, remember this is 1920, was William B.H. Dowes, who, aside from being the president of Reed and Barton, was also the governor of the Massachusetts Society of Mayflower Descendants. So he had a lot of pull within this organization, and this was literally a group of folks who traced their heritage back to those first folks who landed at Plymouth on the Mayflower. So it's a very prestigious thing to do, especially in the 1920s. This was a really popular period of American history. And if you were one of those folks whose great, 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 great grandfather came over on the Mayflower, well, that was something to celebrate. And of course, there's still societies who celebrate that to this day. But this gentleman who was the president of Reed and Barton, the manufacturing company, just happened to be the governor of this Massachusetts Society of Mayflower Descendants. So he helped with these medals when they were first produced in 1920. When they were first made, they were made of bronze or gilded bronze. But 50 years later, so this would have been the 350th anniversary of those Pilgrims landing, you actually had these pieces that were made in silver. The obverse of this piece, make sure that I've got this right, it's a reproduction of Marshall Johnson's painting, The Mayflower Approaching the Land. There you see the Mayflower being kind of tossed a little bit by the storm. And again, this is the reverse of the medal. I tend to think of that as the opposite, but that's what the literature says anyway. And you see the Pilgrims landing. Super duper high relief. This is just crazy relief on this piece. And this, again, the silver medal, the ones that were struck in 1920 out of bronze, some of those are super, super high relief too. I mean, it really looks like a deep dish pizza. It's kind of cool. So these pieces were actually commissioned in 1970, 50 years after the original, by the National Association of Congregational Christian Churches. Kind of the same idea. They probably churned these out in 1970s for 10 or 15 bucks a piece. They sold them for $20 or $30 a piece. It was kind of a fundraising thing. But they are just really nice pieces. These are right about 4 troy ounces of sterling silver. And I know the edges of these are a little bit difficult to see. Let's see if we can see exactly what it says on these. Try to find the edge marking. There we go. Oh, that's not too bad, right? So if I can block it so that we can actually make it out. There we go. Reed and Barton Sterling 257. So this one is number 257. This one is number 73. I'm not sure that we'll be able to find that. Maybe. Going around until I can actually find it. I think that's it. Of course, upside down both ways, wouldn't you know it? Reed and Barton, number 73, and it says sterling, or stir at least. So, it says sterling. So 73. So both of these pieces made out of sterling. I wanted to say that these pieces are not that difficult to find either, but be very careful if these are something that you want to pursue, because they did strike these in pewter also. And the pewter examples look a lot like the sterling examples. So you want to examine the edge. You want to make sure that they actually say sterling on them, because the pewter one's virtually identical. And this one, I think, if I remember correctly, it does. It actually has a little bit of that verbiage that we talked about earlier on it, on this original holder that these came in. I don't believe that this one says anything on it. It's blank. So 2 examples dating back to the 1970s. These pieces also 1970, 73, and 72. So you can see this was a really popular period of time, and I think a lot of it had to do with the whole bicentennial. People saw it on the horizon, was making them feel very patriotic and trying to kind of rediscover their history also. And then the last piece I have to try to kind of give you a little bit of impetus here, try to inspire you if possibly going out and trying to find these pieces for your own stack, regardless of what the association is, whatever the holiday is, or whatever the event is, or whatever it is that you can kind of bring back into your own collection, your own stack. I've talked about this piece an awful lot. This is the 1901 Pan American Exposition of Herman Atkins McNeil. Herman Atkins McNeil was also the designer of the Standing Liberty Quarter, but he was one of the first American sculptors, this was at the very beginning of the 20th century, who understood that the American Indian was going away. And he spent a lot of his life trying to capture the American Indians, the indigenous population, the Native Americans, however you want to refer to them, as a classic example of what America was. And he was really trying to get a hold of it before it disappeared because he saw that on the horizon. This medal made for the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York in 1901. And the exhibitors at that exhibition vied for these medals. If you were the top three in your particular category, you got either the bronze, the silver, or the gilded bronze. They did make a couple, literally 2 solid gold medals too. I will be talking about this medal in an upcoming series of videos about tone. And while this piece isn't really about Thanksgiving, it definitely has those kind of similar themes that I was talking about. Here you have the beautiful rendition of the North American Native American and kind of the Central or South American Native American, and you can see on their shields what they're supposed to be representing. And they've got their weapons down here on the ground, and they're sharing a peace pipe, kind of supposedly kind of demonstrating peace throughout all of the Americas. But this is just a gorgeous rendition of this Indian chief with his full headdress and all of his accoutrement. It's just a beautiful rendition. But what kind of makes this piece more than just the fact that it's got a Native American, certainly not trying to be offensive. Of course, if you're familiar with my channel, you know that my backdrop is always this Navajo prayer rug with the yay figures. The colors of this piece, the tone on this piece, just say autumn or fall to me. They have those kind of leaf changing colors that you don't find very often. This is one of the most beautiful toned pieces from this entire series. Very fortunate to have this in my collection. But it's not just that, it's the fact that there are so many oak leaves all throughout this design also. And that just kind of makes me think of fall. And when I think of fall, I think of Thanksgiving. The colors say Thanksgiving, the themes say Thanksgiving. Even if the medal itself isn't specifically about Thanksgiving, you can see how you can build these themes within your stack, within your collection, and it gives you a little bit more something to grab onto, something to look for, and it can be really enriching, a very fun way to stack. There we go. Some interesting pieces of Thanksgiving themed silver, hopefully to kind of motivate you while you're digesting your huge turkey dinner. If you have any questions about the pieces that we talked about here, by all means leave that question down below. I'd love to hear it. If you've got other pieces that you have in your stack that remind you of Thanksgiving, let me know what you've got. I'd be interested to see what you have, or at least hear what you have. This is something that can really make stacking a whole lot of fun, and it really adds dimension to it. It's really kind of a neat thing to do. If you have suggestions of any other videos or video series you'd like to see me make regarding coins or precious metals, leave that comment down below. And if I make a video or video series, I'll definitely give you a great big shout out for it. Look for the video coming up about tone when it comes to coins. I think that's a really good series of videos to watch also. Always be learning. And as always, thank you for allowing me to be a part of your journey as we go deeper into the world of coins and physical precious metals.